And Rob and I had a long discussion about whether the resolutions have to be 3 readings or 1. Quite frankly, in the end, I think he told me it was 1, but sometimes when we're talking to Rob, I get lost. So whatever we legally have to do, we're gonna do.
Resolutions used to be 1
Well,
for years.
in Ohio Revised Code, there are some conflicting things because you have villages that have charters and you have villages
Well, we are, yeah, we're statutory.
We're a statutory village, and we have to abide by that.
Right.
And I can't tell you the difference between the two. But go ahead, Justin.
So I would struggle. We lost the council meeting packet. I don't have it in my electronic file. You have printed out.
Yeah, somewhere here, yeah.
You need that for other.
No, I can get it.
It's, yeah,
It's right here.
So a resolution granting the village administrator the authority to approve contracts to supply bulk water to the Village of Addyston. We discussed this in prior meetings, committees. Addyston's come upon a hardship, especially with NEO's closing. Their well fields are located on NEO's property. When NEO's does finally discontinue operations, they'll no longer pull a vacuum on their wells, which will essentially let the flume extend into Addyston, that's well sourced, and it'll become contaminated as early as a week after NEO stops that. There's already some contamination concerns that are occurring. So work with the EPA and a nonprofit RCAP, which is a Rural Community Water Assistance Organization. With them, I submitted for the EPA grant for regionalization for us to extend our water main and tie into the Village of Addyston, provide them a bulk water source. We were given an award for that, around $900,000. In order to move forward on that grant award that we've obtained, we have to execute a bulk water agreement. So essentially, we need to prove to the EPA that we are, in fact, going to supply Addyston with bulk water, and in turn, they have to agree that they're going to abandon their well fields. I need council to grant me the authority to negotiate a contract with Addyston, supply that bulk water. Does anyone have questions with the grant process or the bulk water discussions?
Well, are they eventually going to be part of our water system? Are they gonna be billed like people outside the village are billed? Are they gonna be billed? How is it going to work functionally?
Probably depends, if you don't mind me interjecting, it's probably going to depend whether or not their village council is even interested in doing it with the Village of Cleves. There was a situation when they looked at doing it with the Greater Cincinnati Water Works. So I don't know how to totally answer what you're saying, because we're not that far along. But I know if he's going to discuss it with them, and they're going to get down to the nitty gritty to get to what you're asking, he's got to have the authorization.
Well, it's conceivable that Cincinnati Waterworks could expand, provide their water, and our bulk line would be just like an emergency, a secondary source if something were to happen.
There's a possibility in the future that if Addison's council decides to go with the city of Cincinnati, Greater Cincinnati Waterworks, was a permanent solution, that we would no longer supply bulk water. If that occurred and we execute a bulk water agreement at this point, project will be funded, it'll make our system more robust, we'll have another emergency connection. It'll limit those that will be out of water. If there was a main break, it would give us another point of connection. If, for example, if Afton View or US 50, there was a break, by St. Anne's, we could shut a valve off while we conducted those repairs, and we could tap into our emergency connection.
So it's a win-win for us, and we got the grant, correct?
Correct. At this point, in order to move forward on the grant, we have to have modeling in by the end of October, and that takes some time for an engineer to complete. We're behind to get that done. And so time's of the essence for us to have, grant me the ability to execute a contract, and Addison will ultimately decide.
Okay,
At this point, their council hasn't made a decision. I provided a draft contract to them and what that would look like conceptually, just so we could have a working point. But your approval of this resolution would then allow me to, speed this negotiation.
what's the number of the resolution?
Well, we're not voting on it today. We can't vote on it today. Normally, we could have passed this by suspending the rules, but because we only have 4 people here tonight, we can't.
Resolutions are not normally done by emergency.
This is an emergency though. But what Rob told us is that we cannot do anything because we don't have enough people here to suspend.
Okay, so this is a first reading.
It is, and it could very well be in the next meeting, but we will suspend the rules for this one. But, the issue, I think, boils down, based on the advice of our attorney, we can't deal with it today.
Okay.
Anything else you need to say on that?
Say, yes, go ahead, Mr. Trump.
I don't know how to spit this out, but is it the state of our environmental enforcement that NEOS has created a public hazard? They're getting out of Dodge. They can declare bankruptcy or just that we're gone, and they can turn off the fan and pollute public utility and other, like, I don't know what this plume is, but does it not affect the Ohio River in this location? Like, is that stated that it's like, sorry, we're out of here, and they're not held to?
My understanding is it's already affecting the Ohio River, and it's already affecting Addiston's water. So, I mean, there's PFOS, which is a form of, forever chemical, is like carbonate molecule. That's already, and NEOS produces carbonate. They make, essentially the plastic beads for car moldings, and they've made that for decades and decades. That plume exists. It is seeping into the Ohio River. It's already leached into Addiston's well field. But they pull a vacuum. So you essentially have 5 wells there in Addiston. One's not operational. NEOS pulls vacuum on 2 of them to cool their system and uses an internal water source for the production. And then Addiston has, well 4 and 5 downhill. Once that vacuum stops, when they cease operation, the plume will then seep in. And that's really a question for the EPA, but in all my conversations with them, there's not much they can do to prevent any of us from shutting down. And they're eager to get Addiston off of that water source, whether it's us or Greater Cincinnati Waterworks. Those are the only 2 options that Addiston really has that's been given to the EPA. There's no other location for Addiston to have a new well on a separate water source. So yeah, I mean their future's bleak when it comes to their water system. So
I don't think we want to give the impression that their water is contaminated right now. I think that would be a mistake.
no, and I'm not giving that. There's a
You said it's already seeping in. Someone could imply that their water isn't safe.
that comes from the EPA's water report, which is public knowledge. So there's a threshold on PFOS. There's a certain allowable amount of PFOS that can be in water. There is a detectable amount at last reading, and what they publish on the water quality report, it's below the threshold that the EPA governs what it is a concern. It's a serious concern. Even at this point, and there's no doubt that it will be well above the allowable limit as soon as NEOS stops.
Shuts down, it
if not
stops,
sooner.
which they haven't done yet.
They have not done this.
Okay. I just don't want to confuse people. We're broadcasting live, and I don't want to get into legal issues on environmental legal issues when an expert isn't here to answer those questions.
And I'm just speaking as a layperson.
I know, and I'm not trying to criticize you on that. I just think that it could be confusing to a resident who thinks their water is already contaminated. Maybe it's me, maybe
I don't think you're confused, Linda. I think it's a very unfortunate situation.
Well, my husband works there, so I'm somewhat informed on what's going on.
I watched the Addison, council meetings. I've heard the things that are going on. I've attended a meeting with him addressing some of that. They're concerned, they got a short time frame.
I understand.
So, and they don't know which way they're gonna go. We don't either.
Yeah. I want us to be able to provide them water once they need it, but that's not an issue.
So next meeting, we're gonna have to take action on that. That takes care of his administrator's report. I want to talk just briefly about